special call meeting of the Board of Trustees of United ISD will be held Wednesday, June 23rd, 2001, beginning at 6 p.m. in the SAC Room 2, Fine Arts Building. Where do I start? Okay.
Will be correction, Stacy,
23rd, you're correct. The subjects to be discussed or considered or upon which any formal action may be taken are listed below. Items do not have to be taken in the order shown on this meeting notice unless removed from the consent agenda. Items identified within the consent agenda will be acted on at one time. Agenda item 1, roll call. Will board members please state their name for the record? I am Alisa Oliveros and I am present.
Ricardo Rodriguez, present.
Ramiro Vélez, the third president.
Roberto Ramirez, present.
Frank Castillo, present.
Ricardo Molina, present.
Okay, agenda item number 2, we have Mr. Javier Montemayor, who is the board president. Do we have any announcements by any member of the board? I think I went out of order here. It's been a while since I've been president. Am I doing this correct, or shall I hand it over now? Okay, so next we'll do Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge to the flag that pledges allegiance to thee, Texas,
Okay. Any public comments? Item number 4. No public comments. And item number 5 is closed session. The board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to sections of the
Mr. President, this is Jaime Garcia, legal counsel. There is no closed session at today's meeting. The grievance hearing has been postponed for further notice.
Okay, so I guess we're regarding, going into item number 7, informational items. A, discussion information regarding 2021-2022 budget workshop.
Good evening, members of the board. It's very nice to see you all.
All of us?
Yes. Yes. So we're here to discuss the budget. We left a hard copy there because we felt it was going to kind of be awkward to see it on the screen, but it's a really brief presentation. Next slide, please. Again, and probably really more for Mr. Castillo's sake, since it's his first year that he'll be looking at a budget. But just to remind the board that it is a requirement for the board to pass a budget for the district. We have to show you a budget by August 20th, and the board has to adopt a budget by August 31st. That's our year end. LISD, their year end is June 30th. So if you've seen things about their budget, they've had to already pass their, well, they have till next week to pass their budget. So that's why ours is August 31st. So we would bring in 3 funds to adopt a budget for: the general operating, the debt service, and food service. And then we have to adopt it at a fund and function level. And then at the same meeting or at a later meeting, we would have to adopt the tax rate to support the budget. Next. So here's our calendar. We've been busy. October and January, Mr. Garza works on enrollment projections. We use enrollment projections to do our staffing, and we use them also to allocate funds to the campuses. We know this year we had a legislative session. It started January 12th. It ended May 31st. And then we've been receiving budgets at the comptroller's office. They're putting them into the system, they're balancing them. And then we plan to have some budget workshops June, July, August to get us there to August to adopt a budget. The certified tax rolls, the Webb County Appraisal District closes our rolls by July 25th, and that's when we'll get our final tax values to know what we can tax. The notice of public meeting needs to be published 10 days before we want to have a public hearing and have the adoption of the budget. So that will be August 8th, and that August 18th date that you see there, that's a regular board meeting in August. And then September 1st, our budget would be in effect. Next slide, please. So in the legislative recap, these are just a couple of bills that you know, individuals in this room and ourselves have looked at real carefully. One of the main things that will impact CNI is the transition to online assessments. We'll be ready to support that transition where our kids are going to have to take their test online. So, you know, you're talking devices, you're talking access controls. And then there was a bill about broadband access expansion. We're still waiting to see what the governor's going to do with this. We don't know if he's going to come up with grants for districts or rural communities or just communities. There's a prohibition now on adopting pandemic pennies. If we had had a disaster like a hurricane or a flood and the governor claimed this area as a disaster, we would be able to ask for extra pennies on the tax rate. But they specifically removed pandemic from this particular section of the Texas Education Code, that we can't use the pandemic as a disaster. So bills not passed that we were watching was virtual instruction extension. What this means that right now, TA nor the governor have the ability to fund kids staying at home getting instruction. So if we ever have to close down, right now we don't know of a way they'll fund us for those kids getting online and doing instruction from home. So hopefully we've heard that they might add something to the special session where maybe they give some kind of latitude to the TA commissioner to be able to come up just in case during the winter or something if we would have to shut down again, maybe we'd get money for our kids staying at home and learning online.
I'm sorry to interject, would this particular bill also be for us being able to offer online to parents that do not want to send the children at the start of the school year?
Yeah, we would have to, well, this one means that they won't give us any money for that child not being physically present at school. We're hoping that the governor does put it in the special session and that they do consider some type of maybe giving the TA commissioner the ability to say, yes, you know what, we'll fund you, you know, a certain amount of money.
But as of right now, this would,
It did not
there's no funds for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the special session is, there's other issues that are going to be
I think so too.
pervaded
Yes.
instead of
Yeah.
school.
Voter suppression.
Right.
And
Yes.
if I may, but if the governor doesn't make any concession, it has to be face-to-face. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now it's face-to-face.
Right now it's face-to-face, so I think it's imperative that we start putting that forward to our parents, to the public, that as of right now, the state TA is no longer going to provide that option to us to be able to extend it to our students. It has to
That's
be
correct.
face-to-face.
That's correct, yes.
And one other question, I know that we had hoped to have an application for a virtual high school, so that's off the table as well.
We had submitted officially and were accepted, but when this bill was not go through, then, you know, pretty much it's off. And that's statewide, not just our district.
I had a question, and I guess you might not be able to answer it, I'm not sure, but when we talk about online learning, you're looking at not having the funds to do it, but does that not make an option still for school districts to do it if parents still don't want to send their kids to school? And
It's not being supported, it's not being supported by our state at this time.
I think what happens, Castillo, let me jump in, Mr. Gonzalez. What happens is, if we don't get funding from the state, then it makes it difficult for the district to be able to continue to pay teachers, continue to do all these things without funding. That's why I know Mr. Gonzalez had submitted a request for online, initially approved, but I think district-wide and statewide, you know, I was just reading for Northside, already notified, you know, there's going to be face-to-face, northeast, and maybe the majority, but it goes back, can we afford all these other people that are not doing face-to-face? And that makes it difficult. It's always very tight. It's very tight.
Probably not doable.
He issued that rule for mobile, ironically.
that is in. So even as applying for a district of innovation, aren't there, like, I remember way back when I was going around with Ms. Randon to the different schools to promote it, I believe you can ask for 7 exemptions or 5, I'm not real sure. I think we applied for 5, but you could apply for 7, from what I remember. could we include it? I don't know if it's too late to include that in an application where we would have a high school, at least a high school, a virtual high school?
Actually, we had to renew 5 years, have already passed by for DOI, and there's no number of limitations for DOI exemptions. But with regards to that, I mean, we are looking at maybe a possibility of another PASS program, because I was working on that application today for LBJ that we currently have, that needs to be renewed. In addition to that, we could probably put United South High School. It does require an additional teacher. That is not necessarily a virtual campus, but it is an online program on campus for 4 hours, which would count for a full day program. So we were looking at expanding. I did speak to Lida about that today, and Adriana Ramirez and Mike with regards to facility usage at that particular school. So we're looking at that. I cannot, one of the exemptions is not necessarily a virtual campus.
No, not a complete campus.
But we will get funded for that, right?
For PASS, yes. For the PASS program, yes. 4 hours and for a full day program. Correct.
Odyssey, using Odyssey, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So the other one that I have there that I couldn't read, and the only reason I put that one is because we ourselves have one of these chapter 313, I don't know if you remember approving the Corazon Energy solar project out on east of here. I forgot where it is. But what this bill did, since it didn't pass, they didn't extend it anymore. So I think it cuts off like 2 years from now. So, I mean, we had been approached by other companies. If we can get into the time that we can get one passed, I think by January, we could, but since they didn't extend it, they just were very upset with the solar people, I think, solar and wind. But we still have this one. This one's still a positive one for us. It passed, and anything that had already been passed, they won't do away with. So this is about a $300 million project out there in, I think, Highway 59.
59.
Yes. Next slide, please. So our revenue, so now we start bringing some numbers together. We did get our preliminary tax values in April. They're at $16.6 billion. It really is a decrease of 2.1%. But it's a combination of, we are seeing an increase in residential, some commercial, but it's our oil and gas that continues to decrease. I think we had about a 30% decrease in oil and gas values. So right now, we know because of the way the state's doing the funding that we are going to have to reduce our maintenance and operation tax rate from the 0.9664 that we have right now to 0.9634. And I know that's very minute, but it's about a 0.003% decrease. And because we have to stay within that state maximum compression range. So like that one, we don't have control over. On the state revenue side, they did fully fund House Bill 3. They made some changes on House Bill 1525. We're using a projected student enrollment of 41,318. Last fall, we had 41,902. So we're being conservative on this budget. We're just going to have to make this really good effort in the fall to find our kids and hope that they do show up. I know they're doing online registration, and just make sure that our students are out there and that they're invited into our schools and work on that, because I think we could get back to about almost a 42,000 member school district. So we'll be working on that. So we're seeing an increase in our state revenue close to about 4.4 million. So the reduction in tax revenue, kind of the offset is probably a net $3 million or so. And then we do plan to propose to bring a balanced budget to you. So we'll be working on that this summer. Next slide, please. So the other fund that you're going to have to adopt and we bring to you is our debt service fund. And just kind of a little background, especially for Mr. Castillo's sake, is November 2013 we had a bond election, and we had the authority from our taxpayers and our community to issue over $408.7 million in bonds. We have issued all of the money, so now it's the part about calculating how much we owe back. And due to some favorable market conditions that we've been doing some refinancing or refunding issues and some increases in property values, the past 8 years, the rate has only increased by 7.7 cents. But back then we had told our voters that we thought we would go up about 13 cents. So we're still below that 13-cent mark. But because our values keep on decreasing, slightly, we probably are going to have to do a 3-cent increase on the debt side. So, but we're working the numbers, and we're going to wait for our final values to determine that. And then we're going to do hopefully a refinancing by August. I mean, if the market is right. So what we're seeing in our debt, our future debt payments, they do start coming down substantially starting 2 years from now. So at that point, we could really see a tax rate decrease. So we'll be ready for that. And the last slide is just to let you know, like, this is the plan for the rest of the summer. Again, it's key that we get that certified tax roll. We will be in discussions with Martin Villarreal, the Webb County Appraisal District, just to see how the appeals are going, the protests, just to see if we're going to lose any more value. We do want to set up something late July after we get our values, so that now we have more definite numbers in our budget. And then, of course, we would publish the 10-day notice in the Laredo Morning Times, and we would hold a hearing on August 18th before the meeting. And then hopefully within that meeting, we would bring you a balanced budget to adopt and the proposed tax rate as well. So that's the plan for the rest of the summer. I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
Just curious, do y'all have any idea where the 600 students may have disappeared to? I know Mr. Gatsa did the numbers of the enrollment.
For this year?
For this coming year, your projected enrollment is like 600, almost 600 students off. I'm just curious if
Yes, sir. This past year that we just completed, the numbers were rated mainly in our pre-kinder and kinder numbers. And it's probably obvious due to parents not having the obligation to send them from an education standpoint in terms of having to make sure that they go. So that's where our biggest numbers were. It was about 500 students that did not come in that we had projected. So we anticipate them coming in as kindergarten students, hopefully, so that's what will offset this year. We're anticipating the same pre-kinder reluctance, I guess, for this coming year as well. So that's where we're kind of having these numbers. I'd like to be conservative, and hopefully, the numbers come in higher. Yes.
all right. Any questions for Ms. Benavides? B, presentation on ESSER funds.
Yes, I know we've kind of been discussing these funds briefly during my budget update, and I know last week there was a comment from the audience about LIC using these funds. So what I'd like to take your time tonight is to explain these funds and just kind of, because they're going to be here for 3 years, and kind of the planning process that we're doing behind the scenes and spending these funds and the legal requirements and the background of these funds. So go ahead and go on to the next slide. We also left you a copy of the, because there's a lot of information, but I'm not going to read every single thing. So the background, just kind of going back to last March, there was ESSER 1. We did get ESSER 1 money, but the state kept most of it. We got an allocation of about 14 million, and I think we got to keep about 600,000. Yeah, 600,000, but they kept the 13 point, whatever the difference.
Is that already a set decision that no other funds are going to be released from those?
Right, ESSER 1 is done, and then ESSER 2, that came from the Trump administration. If you can see the December 2020 date, that was released to TEA, but TEA, you'll see in a later slide, didn't release it to us till this past month. They released it on June 3rd. So that's the money that we're working on right now. And then ESSER 3 actually came from the Biden administration. And that one, they did issue it out to through the Department of Ed to TA on March 11th, and excuse me. And then I have another slide. This is where I kind of get into the meat of ESSER 2. They released it to us on June 3rd. The funds will be available to us. We can charge expenses all the way back to March 13, 2020 through September 30th, 2023. And however, with these funds, the state is going to use to cover some of our attendance that we lost this past year. We're calculating that amount. We're coming up with our own estimate, but we really won't know until September 1st. So the amount they're telling us that is allocated to us is $56,787,000. However, the state might keep between $5 to $7 million of that whole harmless attendance. So really, we probably can count on about 48, 49 million of that. It does require us for the superintendent to, and I don't know why they put this in the letter, but just to brief the boards that it is a one-time funding source, that it's not going to be coming in every year. So just to let you all know that. And the reason I wanted to kind of explain about these funds, because it affects the next item that we are bringing to you, that resolution, because our plan is to use this one-time money for that one-time payment that we're going to propose.
These ESSER 2 funds, do we already have we already received the full amount, or has it been a partial one that's been received by us?
What happens is we go through an application process and we submit it. The applications are due to TA by September 2nd, but we do want to send it long before. And once we submit the application, we can start getting funds. We can start either getting some pre-funds, or whenever we do spend it, they do reimburse us.
It's got to be approved. It's got to be approved by TA.
The application,
The plan.
but pretty much it's not a competitive grant because it is
Right.
an application amount that they gave us, so we just have to submit that grant application. And we submit it through our federal programs department, through Ms. Morales, so she's very familiar with the outline of the grant application.
That's a middle, it entails basically what we're going to use the funds for, is that basically
Exactly.
what it is?
You actually have to check off exactly what you're going to use on all the allowable activities.
Correct.
It makes you submit a budget summary. You know, you're going to use so much on payroll, so much on supplies. So you do have to submit that type of application.
On both ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, there are some restrictions.
Right.
That's where we can use the money, but whatever it is, we decide to ensure we understand, what we cannot or how we can use them. Because again, I know Sam has talked about that, and we're probably one of the districts that's going to get the larger amount, so there's no doubt in our mind that TA is going to send you auditors, and we need to make sure we stay in the spirit of what the law is, because otherwise you got to repay. Definitely don't want to do that.
Quick question. I know there's been a lot of expenditure from this district funds right now throughout this past year. Would this funds be able to reimburse some of our
Right, yes.
expenditures? Or-
If you see that the funds would be available, and I guess the term available means we can cover expenditures all the way back from March 13th.
Okay.
So Sam has been working with really pretty much everybody that's here.
Right.
What got submitted this past year, PPE, we did have quite a bit of expenditures. So
There'll be a certain percentage that has to go to address the learning loss, I guess.
that would be ESSER 3. So ESSER 2 doesn't have that requirement. So, but ESSER 3 does, which is the next slide. If you want to go to the next slide. I know it looks kind of like the other one, but this is a lot more money than the ESSER 2. They did release it to us in April. We are doing a planning session tomorrow with the CNI department so that they can tell us, okay, this is how we're going to address learning loss. Again, the funds are available, or they would cover any expenses from last March. And this one goes a little longer. It goes through September 30th, 2024. And
Just
yes,
board, 20% of the funds has to be spent on learning loss.
yes.
That's why curriculum instruction really involved right now at this time.
Yes. So the next, and I mean, look at the amount is a lot more, 127 million. There's a lot of money. So what I wanted to just briefly talk about is the legal requirements, so you're aware. Go ahead, next slide.
Do you lose about 10% from the SR3 funds as well, or that's only on the SR2?
No, ESSER 2, they'll keep some money. ESSER 3, that's all ours.
127?
Yes. So, yes, the Biden administration got a lot of complaints about the states holding on to some of that money. So some of the legal requirements, it's mostly on the ESSER 3 level. We need to do 2 planning requirements that we need to meet, and I'll explain those real briefly. The 20% set aside for funding to be expended for learning loss type activities. There's a maintenance of equity. The next 2 are really more accounting type issues. Next slide, please. The 2 planning requirements. This is probably the most key thing, is that we need to present to the board as an informational item, and our plan is either probably the July board meeting, come to you with our plan of how these funds are going to be expended. And then it's very important, I don't know why they harped on this, we need to do a public notice, And what we've been doing as far as engaging meaningful consultation with our stakeholders, we've had several meetings with some staff. We presented to the CNI cabinet members, we presented to DEIC, we presented to the principals. And so we are trying to get the word out there of these funds and what our plans are to use these funds on. So it's really important that we try to follow this. Like Mr. Santos said, they want to make sure we do everything they've asked us to do. Next slide. The next one.
Who will determine that meaningful consultation?
It's right. It's kind of gray, but we feel it's presenting data, in a meeting, maybe with a set agenda.
Public.
Yeah, to the public. Now, we do, like tonight's meeting is being recorded, so we hope that our audience would look onto this presentation to understand. And then we'll do a public notice. I mean, we might even do an ad in the paper to say, public notice of ESSER 3 funds for United ISD, just so that our public is aware that we are presenting these funds. The next
Just to describe the reason that you're doing meaningful consultation.
Yes,
Actually use those terms.
yes, they use those terms, and we have to, they don't tell you exactly what to do, but they give you some guidance. We also, Ms. Morales just reminded me, we did surveys of our students. And we can be sharing that with you in our next, in that meeting. It was very good, I think a very good response from our students on what they felt about learning at home, what were their roadblocks and things of that nature. We had some very good results from our students being surveyed. And we also surveyed the staff and parents and families. So we're getting some input from our community.
Okay.
Yes.
Are there going to be any restrictions to whatever the need of the students that were affected by the pandemic, by not able to attend, being sick, or any other matter to that concern? But are there going to be any restrictions, or the district is going to request for a lot of documentation to present to the school, or whenever somebody comes and requests for help?
No, I think we'll follow our own procedures of parents.
That we work closely with all our campuses, sir.
Yes, yes.
I mean, we're going to look at the academic part of it, making sure that we address the needs of every single child, regardless, I mean, if whether they're going to be at home, if they're sick or something, or regardless what kind of program they're in, the GD program, special ed, we're addressing all students with the funding.
Thank you, ma'am.
So the next two slides, if you want to go on to the next slide also, it's kind of like an outline of the plan that we're going to have to bring to you. The second part of the planning requirement is that we're going to have to bring to you a safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services plan. So it kind of goes hand in hand with the first plan. And so I know Ms. Rendon and her staff have always been working on a safe return to school plan. And we have to make it available to the public, and we have to post it within 30 days of getting our grant award. So there's some little things that we need to take care of. And then that plan has to be reviewed every 6 months, and we need to revise it as the CDC guidelines change. We need to be revising that with safe return to in-person instruction. And of course, we would present it to the board via informational item. Next slide, please. So this is a 20% set aside for learning. They are pretty explicit about what we think we should spend it on, like summer school, extended day, which is your tutorials, after-school programs, etc. Right? But they really want us to have interventions for our special populations, especially those that have experienced homelessness, or if they're in foster care, and if they are children with social disabilities, and also if they are English learners as well. So they want us to focus on those populations as well. And TA kind of gave us this guidance that we should use our data to determine what type of services we need to provide our students. And I think that's what Mr. this was alluding to, like, how do we know what the students need? And that's where C&I will come in and do their assessments of the kids to see where they're at and what do they need. Next slide. Really, this slide is really more our issue over here. We need to make sure we follow the letter of the law on these issues, this maintenance of effort and maintenance of equity, but we'll be keeping an eye on that. And then the next slide is on EDGAR. You have to follow, it's an acronym, and I really don't know what it means, the Education Department or something. So we actually follow EDGAR for every federal dollar that we spend. And from these funds, they're federal funds. And so we have to follow certain things, and there's a new provision, and we've gotten with Mike Garza and Corey Flores on this, Corey Jackson, that in all our bids for this type, to use this money, we need to put in our bids that we have a domestic preference for procurement, meaning they want us to buy American. Not that we need to do it, but they prefer us to. So that's kind of interesting that they put that language in there. And then the red just indicates certain forms that we have our staff complete when they're going to use these funds. Now, the next section, it's a long section, and I'm not going to go through every single one. But the main thing is that the allowable use of funds is, again, that we need to reserve at least 20% to address learning loss. Go ahead. And then you'll see just a list, and again, you have been provided a copy so that you know what we can spend these funds on. Go ahead. And really, it's both ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. This is where both of them come together, and this is what we can use. We can purchase technology, we can purchase some more sanitizing equipment, and then for mental health services, go on. And we can also, there's the second to the last bullet, we can improve our indoor air quality. And so one of the first things we're going to purchase is some portable purifier units for our special ed units and our nurse stations. And these are just some units, that standalone units that hopefully right now we have some at our sheriff's center. When this pandemic started, we invested in some for the students at that location. So we hope to, I think it's close to 700 units that we plan to purchase. Of course, we're going to come to you all with a proposal. So that's part of the indoor air quality. And this one I did put on red because this particular activity is what we're going to be talking about in the resolution. We are allowed to use money to maintain operation of and continuity of services, including continuing to employ existing staff. So this is the language that allows us to use this money for one-time payments to our existing employees, because we want to continue the operations of the school district. Go ahead, next.
We're adding staffing, right, as well, we can add.
Yes, we
additional
can use
staff.
it for staff, yes.
And then these be covered for the next 3 years, which
Right.
is the period that we're going to be looking at.
Exactly. That's why they said, make sure you tell your board members, you know what, this money does go away eventually, right? So, yes.
So I see in the resolution that you're recommending a $3,000 one-time only employee salary increase. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, okay.
I don't know, I think my mic's off, I'm not sure. Can you hear me? Okay. So is there any room there to go up a little bit more from 3,000?
There is, ma'am, but, I don't know, we'll talk about it this time, we'll talk about it when we go to the resolution itself.
I mean, I can finish up and, next item is the resolution.
Is a resolution?
Yes,
Yeah, ahead of you.
yeah. And again, I just want to go on record that we've explained some of these, and then for our public, that they've seen this, that we know about these funds and how they can be used. But just real quickly, the procurement is really key. Next slide. We need to make sure the expense is allowable, and they gave us a list of allowable, that they're reasonable, and that's why we go out for RFPs, and that they really are necessary for the operations of the school. And then next slide. These are the thresholds we follow to make sure we comply with not just federal law, but really Texas law, right? And then the next slide. This one's kind of key because when you're using federal funds, you have to make sure that your vendor is not listed as a vendor you cannot use on SAM.gov. So our staff have to actually go in there and look up to see if the vendor's listed, I guess that's a bad vendor, but, right, so that they're not able to use it.
Is that part of your procurement questioning? of these-
Yes,
of
right.
these?
When we ask them, are you suspended or debarred, and they say no, or yes, or well, probably they say no. But we actually have to go the next step and take a screenshot of where they're not listed here, you know, like that there's nothing on their record. So that's what you have to do when you use federal funds. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we have to make sure in our CIPs and our DIPs that we address the funds we're using. So when TA comes down to audit, next slide. This is kind of where we're going to be taking very careful steps with how we use the money, because TA keeps on, in all their trainings, they keep on harping that they are creating kind of departments to monitor these funds. And so we did get an audit the last time they came, and we built the Sheriff's Center, and these auditors actually walked out to the Sheriff's Center to make sure we were just using American products. They were out there with Mr. Rangel and Mr. Linedecker. And so they, you know, when they say they're going to come on, they're going to come on.
That would be TEA, or?
Yeah, TA, yes.
What authority would they have to oversee the federal funds?
The federal funds came through them. I'm sorry, the federal funds came through them.
Into that, but,
Yes.
so the federal government is granting them authority to oversee and determine the use and.
They expect them
They're
to,
holding
yeah.
TA accountable, so that's why.
On SR2 or both, SR2 and 3?
Two and three.
Okay.
All federal funds. Yes, so our goal would be just to build proper documentation and, you know, just, I guess, get ready for them to show up at any time, really. And they do a lot of desktop audits also, where we send them information, then if they want more, they'll request it.
What does disaster covers? What does it mean?
Disaster grants were really like for those schools that got money for, like the Hurricane Harvey, like the ones in the coastal bend. TA actually manages those monies as well for them, and so they'll audit them also. So our money is the stimulus grants, and so those are the ESSER 2 and 3 funds that we're getting that they'll come and do audits on. So again, this was also explained to our staff just to let them know, you know, these are the rules, and we'll be, we'll make sure that we have the proper documentation to prove. And then the next slide really is just how detailed TA gets. They tell us what account codes to use to make sure we keep track of these funds. And really, that's the end of this, I know, very long presentation, but I'm hoping that y'all did get educated more on ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 because of the next item.
So what I'm interested in, and I know that this proposed salary increase is part of it. But what I'm interested in, I'd like to see the plan itself. I'd like to see it broken down, campus by campus. You know, what you're projecting to use in the Chair Center or curriculum instruction. You know, how much PPE equipment is going into these places. I know it's probably a lot, and maybe I'm being a little too ambitious, but you know, I think I want to explain to the constituents that we're spending this money, you know, so much of this money per campus. We are, you know, we can break it down by student. How much is each student going to benefit from these? But you just told me we're going to order all these. We're looking at ordering all these, you know, air purifiers. Great. You know, where are these purifiers going to go? You know, the Chair Center. You know, so I'd like to see something a little more specific, you know, so I can kind of digest it. You know, to be able to explain to the teachers that, you know, safety and the health of our children is still a priority, and this is what we're looking at spending per campus. How much are going to teacher salaries? I know this is probably going to be what, about $27 million of those funds already. That's more what I'm interested in seeing later on down the line before it gets approved. I just want to see how it's broken down by campus. So a year from now, I'll be able to.
Mr. Montemano, we can do that, but you know, as we have a meeting again tomorrow, as Liza mentioned, but it's not so much for campus, we're moving by department, and whatever the department is recommending is going to be infused into our campuses for our students. I mean, sure, we can break it down as how much we're spending per student support. That's not a problem. But we're working really, the departments are making recommendations to see what programs, what avenues we have to infuse that into all our campuses.
That would be great. I'd like to see something, just a little more specific that
That'll be part of that plan we need to bring to you. It'll probably be a little bit more general just because of the plan, but as we're going, we can be giving you updates. You know, we've ordered this, and a lot of stuff will come through here through RFPs and things of that nature. But yeah, we can work on something to do a report to the board saying we've expended this amount of money for this type of activity.
just like the bond program, you know.
Yeah, no, that's it.
We have specifics,
Yes.
you know, this is what's going on into this campus, this is how much it's gonna cost to do this, just something a little more specific, at least for my.
No, definitely, yes.
And if I may, I think one of the reasons, and maybe the biggest reason we're trying to do this today, give us a little cushion because for our staff, to get this money to account toward the TRS, we need to get this turned in by the 30th of this month.
Yes, so we can move on to the resolution right now? Okay, good. So the resolution, the reason we're, remember there's those two funds, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. So we're recommending a resolution.
And just for the record, this is agenda item.
Agenda item 8A, resolution, the board approving a one-time salary increase for 2021-2022 school year. Okay, I'm sorry, Madam
No, that's fine, I was hoping we followed protocol right. So this one-time increase that we're recommending, it's a one-time increase, that it doesn't become permanent, but it does, the way we're going to do it is it's going to qualify for TRS, which is very important for a pension, right? So what we have to do is we have to pass a resolution and do it before June 30th because, well, TRS advised us that it has to be done before somebody's new employment contract starts. So the individuals, especially that you see here, and our facilities individuals, they all start July 1st in their new contract. So that's why it's key that we do June 30th. Yes.
And refresh my memory, how much was ESSER 2, the total? Because I'm thinking that what you're proposing is about, of the two ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 combined, we're only looking at about maybe 20% of the total funds for this.
Yeah, the ESSER 2 was
57
52 million, right?
Yeah, but when you combine it with 127 million, then it's nominal. Well, nominal is
Right,
20%.
yes.
So we still have a lot left for other things.
Right.
A significant amount left for.
Right, and if you remember, ESSER 3 really was the one that said, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. So what we felt was, especially because ESSER 2 expires a year before ESSER 3, we thought, you know what, let's recommend to use ESSER 2. We get so much of it done, and now we can really start looking at ESSER 3, because once those deadlines come, they won't let you spend any more money.
Can't carry over.
Yes. So ESSER 2 expires in 2023. So this will be a big chunk taken from it, but at least, you know what, it was allowable. It made it TRS eligible, and you know, it was, I think, staff felt that it was something that our staff could use. They've been through a very difficult year, and they've hung in there, you know, so this was our recommendation. We would do it in 2 equal payments. We've established that we would do the first payment on October 4th, and the second payment either January 21st or 24th.
What were the amounts?
The amount would be the amount that we're recommending, Mr. Rodriguez, is a total of $3,000, and we would divide it in 2.
This is
2
where,
equal payments.
this is where that
All
question
employees,
comes in.
all employees,
Is
all
there-
full-time employees.
Is there flexibility to move it up, even $500
That was
more?
the question she asked, the 30, is there room for?
Is it possible, is there?
There's always possibilities.
Yeah, there is a possibility. I mean, you saw that we would still have some funds left in ESSER 2. I believe $500 is close to $4 million. So our total would go up to about 31 million of that, let's say 48 million. So
Let me interject real quick, ma'am. You were saying about 31 million for the this one time?
This one is 27, right? The 3,000.
3,000.
How are we getting to that 27 million? How many employees are we looking?
We have 6,665 employees. And then what we do is we count about 6,665 employees.
Right, so that, at 3,000 each, and then what else is being included in that?
What's being included is the our cost, which is the TRS and Medicaid and those kind of taxes.
The fringe benefits.
Yeah, the fringe benefits, sorry.
Got
So-
almost 20 million just on your $3,000.
Yeah.
And then the fringe benefits is the
7 million.
I think it's important to note also, employees as a whole, we're looking at all of you as employees, all their contract have different number of days. Yet, what we're recommending is to pay them all the same amount.
Yeah, and I think it's well-deserved. I think everybody agrees with me that it's well-deserved. Not only were teachers put through the ringer, so to say, but not only with teaching their students, but they even had their own children at home who were also learning online. So they had men, I don't even want to say they had dual roles. They had more than dual roles. They were the cafeteria, they were the everything for their children and others. Aside from the fact that they had their own issues, I'm sure that they were going through. So if this is going to help them with TRS for 1 year, when that's very significant and important to a person who is looking at retirement, why not? This is federal funds that were given to us, and it's allowable expense, and it met those 3 criteria that you said, allowable, and I forgot what the other 2 were.
Yeah, necessary.
That should be used for every single fund that goes to the district, not just federal, but definitely this meets that criteria. If we could do 5,000, I would do 5,000, but I know we can't do 5,000, but maybe we could do 3,500.
Yeah, no, 3,500, and just a correction, Mr. Bettis, for the 3,000 with benefits or taxes that we have to pay, right? It's a total of about 22.5 million. And then if you add
That's at
another,
3,000, right?
yes, at the 3,000. And then if you add, I'm hearing another 500? Yeah, that would be 26.3 million. So, there's the room. And then at the same time, who knows what will look like a year from now?
Right.
Maybe if there's some funds, we would do maybe something next year, but at least for this year, let instruction start doing their plans for learning loss recovery, and we'll just see where we at. We want to do some indoor air quality projects. We want to buy some technology. We want to get ready for online testing that the state is telling us to do. And they've also asked school districts to do some very intense tutoring for the kids we're reading at a 3-to-1 ratio when we used to do it at a 10-to-1 ratio. So that's going to cost money, which we can use this money for. So, if you take like a year 1 approach, get this from ESSER 2, and then we can start addressing all the learning loss and all these other projects from ESSER 3. And then we'll see, next July, okay, where are we at? Have our kids recovered? Hopefully they have. And, we take it year by year, and we just come up with a plan.
Do we need to read the resolution into the record?
I do want to make a comment.
No, you don't need to.
I did want to mention something. I'm all in favor of doing this. I just want to make sure that, for the sake of myself and perhaps those in the public, we're not talking about an increase, salary increase that the district is doing. This is going to come later in the budget talks, right? In the budget later. This is just ESSER funds.
Right, this is our one-time payment? Yes.
So later, I guess we'll have to open discussion about what kind of raise or cost of living raises that we're going to be giving. I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly, or even minimum wage increase, which I'm a proponent of, $15. I think you already know that right now. So I just want to make sure this is not going to replace that. And so.
No, sure. And if I were to steal, yes, but we also look at what the district can afford at this time as well. Okay, we are also responsible, but at this time, we're going to make the recommendation, so.
I would like to make a motion.
Let me ask you something. Ms. Benavides, and I know that we're probably going to go and it's going to pass with 3,500. How is that going to be distributed to the employees?
Well,
Now it's 3,500.
So the plan, the way the resolution works, that it would be paid in 2 payments. So we would divide it in half and pay the first one on October 4th. And what happens, so, and the key thing, so that it could be eligible for TRS, it has to be earned proportionally, meaning that you had to work for it, so that it could be
Let me ask you
TRS.
something, can it be broken down a little bit different? Like, let's say 500 when school starts, everybody gets $500 as soon as school starts. And then prior to November, before the holidays come in, to get the rest, the remaining balance. That's their 2 payments there.
Sure, there is, and if I may, there's a lot of possibilities, but we also have because of the fact that there's other departments that are affected. Obviously, human resources working as far as how the payments are done, the biz department. So there's a lot of entities involved. I will tell you that just today, there was 3 meetings held. You know, we had with 11 of these, then we had our last one probably about 2:30, 3 o'clock as well. A lot of planning, so there's always possibilities. At this time, we're recommending the 2 payments. One will be in October and then will be in January. But
But
I
can
mean,
it be
just-
done prior to school starting?
So are you proposing 3 payments?
No,
then?
2 payments.
Oh, 2 payments, just move up the date?
Yeah,
Well, what I-
to move, in other words, as soon as school starts, everybody gets a check, like a
August.
welcoming.
In August?
well, Mr. Lee, we also have to look at the fact when we're going to get the funds.
Yeah, we can,
And the-
it's possible, there's a possibility. I think what happens, and this is something we can look at, and Mr. Castillo alluded to it. If we come back to you in July, and we would like something adopted before June 30th. And I don't know, we can get with legal to see, you know, do we have to be specific
On the date.
number of payment or dates?
On the distribution.
I think the resolution as stated just states 2 equal payments,
equal
doesn't
payments.
mention the
But
amount.
it's
And that's a part 2.
I think more importantly, from a legal perspective, to make sure we meet the requirements is the amount.
Appreciate it more, getting it once they all come into school.
You know, back to school expenses,
Yeah.
uniforms.
Can we,
and-
can we can approve the amount today, approve your resolution, just, we can take out the distribution of payments, 2 equal payments or 3 equal payments, and we can bring the distribution back.
You can do that, yeah. I think the only thing is TRS wants to make sure you do it's earned proportionately. So that means if someone retires or separates from the district, you have to try and claw back those funds. So that was the intent.
Were those dates, was that right?
I believe-
Why it was taken into consideration as far as?
That's correct.
was retiring?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Starting
This
on
is
the-
where there's a lot of discussion today.
Right.
You know, just the personnel that it takes from our human resources department for every single employee to make adjustments. I mean, it's massive work. We'll share that with you.
So if we distribute all the payments this fall, and they retire in December,
They don't get it.
they shouldn't be getting it, we're gonna have to.
You're going to have a hard time collecting the money back.
Right, so
I
I-
understand.
Especially with the amount, sir, I mean, especially for some of the hourly employees, it might be extremely difficult to collect that back.
So you studied this already, Mr.
It's-
You know that this is the best way to handle it,
Because I know
to
the-
divide it up in 2. So, I mean, I'm gonna go with what the experts, so you are
And I think
telling
that
me.
October the 4th, that's not even a regular payroll date for the district.
We look at our pay scale
Right,
and our dates are.
So this ensures that like October 4th, that we have employees that start the school year at least are a month in or 5 weeks in, and then employees that are still going to be there after we come back for the new year. So-
Yes, yes.
Now, if an employee were to not pay the funds back, are there legal avenues that the district can take?
Let me jump in on that. Yes, there is, but again, going back to the comment that was made, if it's an hourly employee, it's very difficult
Oh, that one,
to
yeah.
get the money back. Extremely difficult, even though we have our attorneys and I know HR, Mr. Garcia gets involved and
You spend more money on the attorney than you
and we won't be able to get those
The
money
first
back.
hour.
And the reason, I think also, I think Mr. Gonzalez shared it with you, as we hire people during the semester, during the year, then they're able to qualify prorated the amount. This way, when you do 2 payments that way, I think it really helps.
Mr. Santos, they have until the 30th of this month for TRS, right?
Yes, in order for it to count for TRS, the board has to approve the resolution. And the reason
Okay,
it's,
how
it's extremely important.
3,500, and then for the other, the conditions to be worked out later, how they're
Yes.
gonna.
I think what Mr. Rosales was saying is, this is totally federal monies. That had nothing to do with our budget, it's federal funds. Once it's approved by the board, whatever amount, then I know staff, Mr. Gonzalez, Lila, Sam, and HR, and everybody else, they're working on the budget. They'll come back to the board on whatever recommendations we can afford, and hopefully another little bump somewhere on our pay raise. That would be separate from Sonia.
That's a discussion for another meeting.
Yeah, another time.
That's state funds. We're doing it
That's
federal
local
right
and
now.
state, yes.
Yeah, local and state. So Ms. Benavides, I guess Mr. Rodriguez had the question. He's wanting to kind of help staff out with back-to-school expenses, uniforms, school supplies, what have you. I guess, Mr. Gonzalez, you're saying it's a lot of work for HR to do that?
What I will tell you is very meticulous work, and I'm sure you guys see us here. We met again today. Just by going in October and January, I will tell you that, I know Ronaldo's going to type out that they're already working on it. A meeting will be held tomorrow with HR, working with his directors. So with his staff is really planning out, they're going to have probably work, coming in on Saturday and so forth, just to get, every single employee with their salaries correct. So yeah, the work is massive as it is.
I think everybody will be impressed or satisfied working to get their funds quicker. I'm just saying, even you can break it in 3 payments. You can make it in 3 payments. I think the employees will be content.
Does adding another payment increase the workload? Or is the workload just?
I would think so, yes, ma'am.
I think the employees at the end of the day will be happy with any amount, and at the end of the day, I think whenever it's deposited to them, whether it's 2, 3 payments, whether it's in October, September, November, January, I think.
Or the 3,500 at one time or whatever, but as long as we approve it before the 30th, so we can go into TRS, it'll count TRS, that would be good.
So I believe you already studied this and you determined that it was better for 2 payments. I'm sure you have to consider a lot of factors, a lot of variables, and that's still your recommendation, am I correct? To 2 payments?
Yes, it makes sense in a sense where, because they have to earn it, and if they leave, they're gonna owe it,
Right.
and if they leave very early on, and if you give them too much up front, right?
Right, and
It's
Mr.
just-
Rosales, you already
it's-
met with staff and department.
We've had multiple
And
meetings
you kind
today
of
as well.
got your heads together.
So
And
we'll
I'm
go
just
ahead.
very happy with this, quite honestly, I'll believe in this.
I would
Have a motion that
would like to
we
make the motion to approve the resolution of the board approving a one-time salary increase of $3,500 for the 2021-2022 school year.
I second.
So move.
Second.
Motion's been offered and seconded. Any further discussion on the item?
Yes, Mr. Juan, on behalf of the employees of
Let
UISD,
me pass it first. All those in favor, say aye.
Just for clarification purpose, as presented, that would be in 2 equal payments.
And to equal payments, sure.
So all those in favor, signify by saying
President, I
aye.
have a comment. I just wanted to thank Nida, Sam, all the administration for working hard and for very hard for this. It hasn't happened in a long time, and I really appreciate it for all of our people that work very hard for us and stuck with us to the end and think of all the incidents. Thank you.
Thank you. President.
and I'd like to share something, our teachers work so hard, all departments. I'll share with you during the freeze, we had our district plumbers going to the campuses before 4 o'clock in the morning. We have our cafeteria ladies out there every single day with the grab and go. I mean, this was totally not an effort, and it's a tribute to their work, but I want to thank you on behalf of all of us at UISD.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's now.
Motion for approval on item 8B.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And item 9, adjournment. We are adjourned.
Very much.
Thank you, everybody.